What is up, everybody? Alex from WMD here, back at you again, and this time we're going to be talking a little bit more about Scalpel and how I have integrated it into my own rig. So I've gotten two Scalpels here, and I worked them into a patch. So I already had this big patch set up. As you can see, I've got 12U, and I got the Scalpels, really wanted to integrate them, and my original plan was to do a 4-channel EQ, basically. And then I kind of realized that I had a lot of my channels already going through filters that were being used for EQ, and I really liked the way that they sounded, but I figured I could do a couple more things just to make the mix sound a little bit better. And so instead of using 4 channels of EQ, I'm using one Scalpel as a 2-channel EQ, and then I'm using the other one to create some cool effects for my master channel. So that's just how I've set it up here. Maybe when this patch all gets recorded and done, I will pull it apart and integrate it the way I had originally anticipated. But basically, I am stoked on this patch. I have quite a few different kits and assimilator, as well as sequences written in Metron, and I haven't recorded anything yet. So I figured I would just show you all how I've integrated these two Scalpels into my rig, and maybe down the road, if I end up using it the way I had originally planned, I'll do another video. But I think this one's pretty cool, and I think that it's useful for sure. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bypass both the Scalpels. I'm just going to bring up my patch here and just show you what I'm working with. Alright, so this is the patch. So originally I had those chords and the vocal sample mixed down going out of assimilators, master out. I was running that into an overseer. And that way I could take out the lows and the highs on either just to make them fit a little bit better, kind of do some effect stuff. I decided that what I wanted to do was split those out for a couple different reasons. So I left my vocal sample going through the overseer, and then my pads are going through the right side of this Scalpel. I also love 909 hats, but sometimes they can get a little bit chunky. These ones seem like they might have already been processed, this sample, but it could use a little bit more of finesse. So I ran the hi-hats through the left side of Scalpel. And with the simulator, I'm always running my hi-hats out of there. So I figure that's probably a pretty good spot for me to keep this one. So when I bring in a new hi-hat sample, if it's just like way too intense, but I like the sample itself, I can go through and EQ that. Same thing with the chords. The chords are coming out of a simulator, and in a different kit, I might do a different preset on a simulator with completely different samples, but I feel like that's a pretty safe bet that I'm going to have hi-hat and then something with a lot of frequency content that I need to EQ. So I've stuck those there. And then everything else, I'm pretty happy with the sound as far as like an overall mix. And when I do eventually go to record this, I'll be recording with the DB25 all separate outs. So then I can go in and really EQ the recording. But I think for a live set, especially a live stream or something like that, I think that my mix sounds pretty good. So what I wanted to experiment with was Scalpel on the master, and I've gotten pretty stoked about that. So yeah, we'll just dive in and we'll start EQing some stuff. So here's the mix. All right, so I'm going to go to the left side. We're going to do the hi-hats first. Just going to turn it on real quick. And I've got something set up, so I'm just going to initialize that. And now this is the sample, right? Like I said, it fits in there pretty well. But we could go find some of those lower frequencies and take them out. So I'm going to go to the band switch here, and I'm going to go to the mid band. I'm just going to boost it. And I'm going to find those low mids right there. I'm going to take those out. Make that Q real wide. Ooh, that sounds really nice. Just kind of smoothed everything out a little bit. Let's go to the next band. Let's see if we can't find something that's just kind of bothering, right? That's a little much. So let's take that out. sounds pretty good. So let's bypass this now. So that's the original sound. And then here's what we're left with after the EQ. It might be a little bit intense, but I like it. Like too intense of an EQ might be a little much. So let's just bring that mid frequency back a little bit. So there's no EQ. Let's just take it down. That sounds pretty good to me, pretty buttery. I/O, just bypass. So that's the original sample, and that's the EQ sample. That sounds pretty good. All right, so now we're gonna focus our ears on the bass line and the chords. So to do that, I'm just gonna literally solo them real quick, just so we only hear those two things. And you can hear that they're not fighting too much, but we could EQ the chords to leave a little bit more room for that bass tone. So I'm gonna go over here, switch over to B side. Now I'm on the B side. I'm gonna I/O, so there's my bypass. Now we're in, and I'm just gonna initialize to make sure we're starting from scratch. First things first, I'm gonna go to the low band, and I'm just gonna do a cut. And that frequency is a little bit high. It took out a lot of those low frequencies. So now I'm just gonna sweep the frequency to really just sit right on top of the bass. That sounds pretty good. All right, so now I'm gonna bring in the rest of the mix. All right, that sounds pretty good. Now I just want to leave a little bit more room for the vocals to come through. So I'm going to take the high mids and just try and find some frequency up in there. And if we boost, we can try and kind of match that frequency that the vocal's sitting in. I might need to go to a different band, so I'm going to go to the straight mid band and try it again. Now I'm just going to take out a tiny bit of that frequency. I don't want to take too much. I don't want it to sound like a filter. I just want it to just meld a little bit better. All right, cool. Let's bypass. So that's the original sound. That's the EQ sound. So that sounds pretty good. I think I might bring a tiny bit of those mids back and then just go take some of the actual high frequencies out, some of the sizzle. So let's just go up a little bit higher here and sweep down. Cool. Now we're just gonna bring all that back and just take off a tiny bit. That sounds pretty good. I don't want this synth to lose any of its character. I just want it to not be so invasive. And now we can really hear that vocal kind of pop through. Let's take some of that high pass out of the vocal here. All right, that sounds pretty good. All right, so now let's move over to the master. So for this, I'm taking the master send out of the performance mixer. I'm going into the second scalpel here. After that, I'm running into the overseer and the muscle. And I also have the master split to go over to this axis, which is doing a dry wet mix for our reverb. So I can send a little bit of reverb, and then we can still hear those tails. So that's one of my favorite effects, right? And so I've still got the overseer. So what can we do with that? I can high pass. I can low pass. I can offset ears. That's pretty cool. And bring it back in. One of my favorite classic things, you know, take out the kick, add some reverb. Drop it back in. That's just one of my favorite things to do. So another sound that I love is that master phaser kind of sound. Like something you might find on a DJ mixer. I feel like it's, you know, on every Tame Impala record, right? It's just like a master phaser or flanger. So I'm going to take these vocals out because it's probably a little weird to hear my vocals sampling in the background while I'm talking, eh? All right, so I have some modulation here. I'm going to take that out just for now, and we'll go down to the first preset. We'll turn her on. So I've got this one set up to be kind of a high pass, just like the Overseer, right? So we can go through here. I'm going to just initialize so we can hear unaffected mix, and we'll do a high pass. We'll just set up, oh, I'm on the wrong band. So let's go to the low band, take those lows out. I'm just gonna save that to the bottom preset down here. Now on the next one, I'm gonna bring those lows back, but I'm just gonna take all the highs out. That's pretty cool. So now I'm gonna save that to number 2. And that's now saved. I can go into morph, and I can morph between these two. Right? One of the cool tricks with SCLPL is that if you're in morph mode, you can actually change your presets without being initialized. So we can be here and say, oh, I want to do the low pass filter. So now I've done that, and the bypass function happens on release. So I can push the button and then on release engage the filter. So again, I can go over here. Let's say I want that high pass now. So that's really nice. You could just set up a bunch of presets and then go through the morph mode and turn it on and off and kind of use it like an Overseer, right? So if you don't have an Overseer or something like that, perfect thing to use. Also, lots of versatility. So that Tame Impala thing I was talking about, let's do a phaser kind of thing. Let's just figure out how to do that. So my plan with this is I'm going to create 2 filters that we're going to morph between. I'm going to create one with lots of high frequencies boosted. Right next to that, I'm going to cut some frequencies. And then I'm going to create another filter with those same boost and cut, but just swept all the way down. And then when we morph between the two, we should be able to have a pretty cool effect. So I'm going to go here, turn it on real quick, initialize. Oh, I got to change my morph here. There we go. Now I'll initialize. And I'm going to go up to the high mid band. And let's just emphasize some frequencies here. So this is going to be the highest frequency that the phaser can go to, or whatever we're trying to call this. And then I'm going to go to the mid band right under it. And I'm just going to cut some frequencies right under it. So let's go find frequencies like real close to that. That sounds pretty good, right? We're going to cut those, make the cue a little bit wider. Go to this high band. Let's take that down just a little bit. That sounds pretty good. Let's save that 1 to 1. All right, cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sweep this all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to go to this, back to this high mid band. I'm going to sweep that to the bottom of the knob. And now I'm going to go to the mid band, sweep that to the bottom of the knob. I'm going to save these ones to number 2. And now when I go to morph, oh, I saved that on the top. So now I'm just going to save. I got to go back and create that again, right? So not a big deal. I can just go back into morph mode. I have this sound. So that's all, that preset's already up. Go to the high band, sweep it down. Go to the mid band, sweep it down. And now we're just going to save that to the second to the top. And now when we go to morph mode, we can morph between these two. Maybe take the lows out with my Overseer over here. Kind of a cool performance trick. So I like that. That's pretty dope. So if I want to take it one step further, I could add some modulation. So in order to do that, I'm just going to take this Volterra out. I'm going to run that into the Morph A input on this SCLPL. And I'm going to go through here and I'm just going to record some modulation. So let's turn it on and we'll just turn this knob. This is a really long sequence, so I'm just going to keep recording here. All right, there we go. So now I have this modulated effect on the master that I can use in conjunction with my overseer and maybe even my reverb. All right. All right, one last thing that I didn't mention earlier is the benefits of splitting these things up, right? So I've got my hi-hat, that's always been on its own channel, but the vocals and the pads were on the same channel for a while. And so anything filtering I did happened to both channels, and also any effect send I did happened to both channels. So what's really nice about this setup is now I have them coming into their own channels on the mixer, and so I can affect them separately. So here's my vocals, here's my pads. Vocals have their own filter. And then I can also put delay on them separate. So right now I've got delay happening on the vocals, but I can take that off, put it on the chords. All right, now I'm just going to jam for a little bit. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you all next time. Peace.
I'm